Yeah. All right. Yeah, I almost wore that, but I didn't. I was afraid I'm going to have some problems with licensing on that to begin with. But I got them out of a garage in Ardmore, so that'll be my story. Um, Today we have what I would say Stillwater's version of Cher and Madonna. We have a guy that goes by one name, Behfar. And anytime you go around and you mention something that went on and you say, well, Behfar's putting in the soccer field, Behfar owns Interworks, everyone knows exactly who you're talking about. And 3 months ago, I called him and we were able to get on a schedule, which is really a neat deal. He's a 1996 graduate of Stillwater High School. He started Interworks, and he's the CEO and the founder while he was a student here getting his master's and undergrad. I think he is the quietest large company that we have in Stillwater, because when people think of certain companies in Stillwater, a couple come to mind, and I always throw in, I think you're forgetting a huge one, and it's Interworks. They're worldwide. They employ 270 people worldwide, including 75 that are Oklahoma State grads. And just some of his clients, so you know, are Google, Nike, Oklahoma State, Stillwater Medical Center. And I will say Chris's University Spirit was one of his first clients, and we put him over the top. So anyway, he's a great representative of both Oklahoma State and Stillwater. So Behfar, come on up. Thank you.
Just one small point of clarification, because Matt Hull is in here. I graduated in 94, not 96. 96 is when Interworks started. I'm sure he was like, wait, how did that? So I like that we ended with trivia. I have a bit of my own trivia. And by the way, this talk normally does span an hour. I'm going to compress it down, so I'm sorry if I talk really fast. But on the screen, does anyone know who this person is? I've done some version of this talk for well over 1,000. Does someone know? No one has ever been able to answer this question. This is Samuel Pierpont Langley. And in the early 1900s, the world was in pursuit of man-made flight. People were trying to build an airplane to put into the sky. And if you were looking at resumes, Samuel Pierpont Langley would have the resume you would probably bet on. He was well-funded by what was called the U.S. Department of War at the time. The New York Times followed this guy everywhere. He had the brightest minds associated with him. He was on the board of Harvard and the Smithsonian. But despite that, no one knows who this person is. By the way, Chris answered all the trivia questions quietly, so I was fully expecting you to get that. Anyone know who these two are? The Wright brothers. If you were looking at their resume and you were placing bets, you would not bet on these two. They had no college education. They had no money. They owned a bicycle shop and a printing press, and they had to sell both of those to raise enough parts to buy airplane parts. But what the two teams had that were in common were they were both in pursuit of the exact same thing. And so the question is, why did one group fail and the other succeed when the mission was exactly the same? And I think a lot of this has to do with this concept of why. By the way, if anything I'm saying sounds a little familiar, I took this talk from off of a guy named Simon Sinek, who wrote a book called Start With Why. Highly recommend it, and adapted it for an Interworks version. So I do this talk to a lot of college kids, and no one knows what this is, but maybe some of you do. I did growing up. It's a rubber band-powered helicopter, right? You wind it up, let the thing go, it takes flight. The Wright brothers had a toy that looked like this that they got when they were kids. Their dad was an evangelical. He traveled all over the world, came back from the Paris Fair one year with a toy that looked like this. So as kids, they fell in love with this idea of flight. They built their own model. This is one of their sketches. They wanted something that would fly faster, stronger, higher, etc. What you had was you had two different teams. You had one team that was in pursuit of a mission that they loved and believed in, they were passionate about, and the entire team that followed them was there for the blood, sweat, and tears. And with Samuel Pierpont Langley, you had a team that was motivated by an outcome. They wanted to be rich, they wanted to be famous, they wanted to go down in the history books. And so you ended up with one team that would just fail over and over and over and over again, wake up with a smile on their face and go, I'm having fun, and they just kept going. And as you know, ultimately the Wright brothers took flight, I think in 1903. No one was there to see it. They had to call in the press and the public because no one was betting on these two, and the rest is history. So I'll give you another story. Imagine you go back even further in time to the 1800s, and you are walking around looking for a job. And you see this guy kind of pounding away at the stone. You walk over to him and you say, hey, I'm thinking about working here. Do you like your job? And the guy stops what he's doing, looks at you, and he says, I work in this heat all day, 100-degree plus weather. The work is back-breaking. It's monotonous. But you know what? It pays the bills. So you're not very happy with that answer. You walk over to the next person who's standing a few hundred feet away, and you say, do you like your job? And that person stops what they're doing and looks at you and says, I love my job. I'm part of building this thing behind me. Hundreds of thousands of people from around the world will come here. They will flock here. I am transforming the region. Yes, the work is hard. It's backbreaking. I'm in the hot sun all day. It's the same thing over and over, but I am transforming this region. And the question is, which job would you rather have? Well, they're both doing the exact same thing. They just have very different outlooks. Has anyone been here by chance? This is the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, Spain. Construction on this started in the 1800s. It is still under construction today. Imagine you are starting your career and you're putting that first piece of stone down, and your attitude is, my job pays the bills. You're in for a long, crappy career. So that brings me to Interworks and why does Interworks exist and how did it get started? So Wright brothers fell in love with tech, with flight at an early age. I fell in love with tech at an early age. I'm 47. When I was in the second grade, this is what a computer might have looked like. This was a Commodore VIC-20, which is a computer I begged and pleaded my parents to buy me. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. My parents were both students at Oklahoma State, came here from overseas. I eventually got something that looked like this because I wanted to, like any other kid, sit around and play video games. Today, if you want a game, you go to the App Store, you run to Walmart, you just go to a download screen. Back then, you more or less had to program it yourself. So my dad got me this book called Zap Pow Boom. Each chapter in the book was code written in a language called BASIC. And if I wanted to play a game, I had to transpose the code by finger, by hand, to the computer. I'm in second grade. I don't know how to type. So one finger at a time. And when you get to the end of the chapter, in BASIC, you type the word run in, and then you hit enter. It says error line 1. So you got to go all the way back to the beginning and go through it again. So I wanted to play games, but what happened was after I went through the entire book, I learned how to code at second grade, right? And I want to be clear, I'm not some high IQ, super genius, prodigy child like any other person. I just happened to do this thing at a very early age and put in the time, and so I got a head start. Growing up, again, same story. Wanted to sit around and play video games. Didn't have a lot of money. Back then, there was no Dell.com. There was no Apple Store. You wanted a computer. You built it yourself, or you went down the road, literally in Stillwater. You went to a place called Hall Technology, and you said, build me a computer. And they said, how much money do you got? You tell them, and then you come back a week later and pick it up. Or you build it yourself and you save a few $100, got a paper route, raised money, bought parts that looked something like this, so I could put it together and it looked something like this, so I could sit around and play video games. The end result was playing games. The journey ended up being really fun. I learned a lot about video cards, hard drives, RPMs on hard drives, processors, memory, etc. And so again, as I'm getting older and older, falling more and more in love with tech and learning a lot on the way. In the 90s, this game called Doom came out. What's cool is when I tell this story to college kids, Doom came out again this past year, so they all know it. But the significance of this game was it was one of the first games you could play with someone else and they didn't have to be in the same room. So if you had a modem, if you had a network card, you could find a way to play against them. And now all of a sudden, all of my friends like Zach McNichol or whomever, or Matt, they're sitting at home going, computers are for nerdy kids. Now they're going, wait, I want a computer because I want to play this game. And so now all of a sudden, no one has the right equipment, right? Everyone had a computer back then because they wanted to run Microsoft Word and print homework for class. So now everyone's calling me because they know I know computers, saying, how do I run this? I need to upgrade memory. I need a network card. I need a modem. How do we call each other? And all of a sudden, I'm doing troubleshooting for my friends. The parents pick up on it. They start asking me for help because they're having problems. And I realize this actually, I like when people are like, I don't know how to do this. Will you help me? And I like walking them through it. That was part of that learning journey. Around 1994, when I was graduating high school, this company called Creative Labs announced they were coming to Stillwater. Does anyone know this name? So in the 90s, if you were in tech, this was the equivalent of Google saying they're coming to Stillwater. It was a really big deal. And as a computer nerd, this was my dream job. So they announced they're coming to town. I interview with them. It's over the phone because they're not here yet. They said, yep, this is great. Come on in. I show up for my first day on the job to be part of the first group hired. They take one look at me and they go, how old are you? And I said 17. They said, you have to leave. Come back when you're 18, company policy. So I ended up being part of the second group hired there. And I ended up just loving it. It was the first time I got to walk into a room, be surrounded by other people who cared about the things that I care about, which is tech. And, it was like my people, right? And what was interesting was it was every kind of person. It was man, woman, cool person, nerdy person. It was every, young, old. I hadn't had that collection of people with similar interests, if that makes sense. When I got there, they were a young company based out of Singapore, publicly traded, going through insane growth. I wasn't into local politics at that time. I guess it was probably a pretty big deal now that I think about it in Stillwater, because it was probably a good maybe a good economic driver, a good place to find jobs. I love the job, and they never told us what the mission was, but I thought it was delight the customer. It was tech support, right? People would call in, help me. It didn't matter what their problem was, we just helped them. And I know I did a good job because I would get people sending me gifts. And one of those people worked for a networking company called 3Com. He sent me a box of network cards because I told him how much I wanted to get into networking, but I didn't have the money to buy the gear. And he said, if you fix my problem, I will send you something. Well, I didn't know the problem he had was in a lab with a computer, and they had 80 identical computers, so turned out it was a pretty big fix. And again, I got this box of network cards, which was worth probably $1,500, $1,800. So Creative Labs went from this place I love to this place that was sort of hell on earth. And I thought, how did this happen? How did I go from, I am so happy to be here, we have barbecues on the weekend, we all hang out, to, I hate this place, get me out of here. And what happened was they went through insane growth. And in the process of going through that insane growth, they started increasing the size of their onboarding classes to 20, 30 people. They had to train up on everything. So instead of finding kind of raw talent, they basically said, if you can type 30 words a minute and we can understand your English because you had to talk on the phone, we will train everything else. And so everything became very scripted. When someone calls, what's the problem? If this is the problem, here are the 4 things you might say. And then when you get to this part in the decision tree, you do this. You have 10 minutes to be on a call. At the 10-minute mark, you get your manager on, you escalate the call. When you hang up the phone, you have 60 seconds to type in your note, get on the next call. For every 4-hour block you work, because there were a lot of college people, you have 15 minutes for a break. smoke, eat candy, go to the bathroom, whatever. Nothing is wrong with any of this, but it was fundamentally different than the place that I started. Everything became a KPI, a metric, how many phone calls are you getting through? And that seemed to be the most important thing. When I got there, the most important thing seemed to be someone's calling, they have a problem, you help them. So I ended up learning a lot about what I like and don't like in a job. There was this apartment complex called Maple 400. This is when I moved out of my parents' house. This was behind Eskimo Joe's. Right now it's a piece of grass, and I think a convention center should be going on it. I moved in here because it had a pool. I thought I'd be hanging out with all my buddies at the pool, and what I ended up doing instead was buying a box of network cable, walking up and down the hall, and saying, hey, do you want to be on my computer network? And if anyone said yes, ran a cable up the wall with a staple gun, stapled it to the apartment building, ran it into their window, and with the box of network cards I got from 3Com, installed a network card in their computer, and sat around playing video games all day. And so what happened was this became like a every weekend thing, LAN parties, setting up networks, and what happened was it became the same 15, 20 problems over and over again. And I'd drive down the road, and I'd drive by whatever, Saratine Center, Meridian, high school, and I go, I wonder what it takes to network that, right? So in 1996, just for the heck of it, and I actually think Stephen Cundiff helped me with this, getting incorporated, I started Interworks, and it was just, why not? I mean, I know people who need help. They're calling me. I need a way to make an invoice. Stephen, how do I make an invoice? How do I open a bank account? Yeah, there you have it. So it was never intended to be what it is today. It was just, it's fun. I actually went to, I'll share this story just because many people know the company. I went to Hall Technology, and I said, hey, you guys make computers for people. If I do why don't you let me service them? Because you guys don't want to do that. If I do a great job, they will be that much happier with your product, and they will buy more of it, and it's a win-win for everyone. And long story short, they said, sure, here you go. So Ghost & Associates needs help. Stephen Cundiff needs help. Cockrell Eye Care Center needs help. And it just kind of kept going and going and going. And so what was really cool was I didn't have to go like door to door and sell. We had a partner, Hall Technology, that did not want to do this. They wanted nothing to do with services work. You had people who wanted help, and just kind of put those two things together. So again, I want to be really clear. I am not some super genius. I knew how to do all these things. Everything was just saying, yeah, sure, I can help you, and then figuring out how to do it. The very first client we ever had was Jamie Murray, and he had what was called a Novell server. I'd never seen Novell in my life. There was no Google.com. I had to go in there, and he couldn't print anything. I had to figure out how to do it. And so I think at an early age, I got comfortable with going, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I can figure it out. One of those calls we got was from Clinton Schools in Clinton, Oklahoma. I didn't know where Clinton was. I still really don't. And and they said, and this is at a time where everyone was getting high-speed internet, so a 1.5 meg internet line. And they said, hey, come network our building because we're getting high-speed internet. And we said, sure, why not? We had no idea what it took to do something like this. We loaded 18,000 feet of cable in 2 cars, so 18 spools of cable. I went to my college buddies and said, hey, will you guys help? They said, sure. We had no idea what we were doing. We just made up whatever tools we thought we'd need. Went down there, realized we didn't have ladders tall enough, so we found a Coke machine, pushed it around, used that as a ladder. We realized at some point you can run lots of cable at once instead of one at a time. You can string it out. And, with each hour that went by, we were learning how to do this better. I don't know if anyone knows about fire code, but I'm pretty sure we broke it because we ran cables directly over lights, and I don't think they were properly rated. And I had no concept of like expenses or how to bill for that. So we didn't. And so we found the cheapest hotel we could, 5 of us in one room. And it wasn't like Motel 6 was not what it was, something worse. I couldn't find a picture of it. But one of my buddies showed up with this bottle of alcohol, champagne wine, something. It was like a $30 bottle, which was a really big deal. This motel had an outdoor hot tub, and we had no idea, so we didn't have swimsuits. We just got in our whitey-tighties, got in the hot tub, passed this thing around, and that's how we'd kind of clean off at night because it's super messy running cable. And when we were done with the project, we sat around, taking pictures, just being silly. And I look back on those days, and I go, we're in a public school where in the summer you don't run AC. So it's 100 degrees in the middle of summer in Oklahoma. When you pop your head above these ceiling tiles, especially if they have insulation, you stick your head up there, it goes up another 20 degrees. So we're working in 120 degree weather. We have no idea what we're doing. By the way, when you push those up, it rains crap all over you. And so at the end of the day, you're just covered. And I look back on it and I go, it was hot. We had no idea what we were doing. We worked long days. We had terrible sleep. We ate Big Macs every meal. And I got to do it with my buddies. And we got to bring internet to this school. And we got to change the lives of the kids in this school. And I look back on that and I go, I loved it. It was amazing. And so the point of that is that I think that if I'm choosing attitude of rock climber or rock builder 1 or stone cobbler 2, I definitely go the route of stone cobbler 2. So graduation rolls around. By the way, all these pictures of people on the screen are, a lot of them are Interworks employees today. This is the year 2000. This is a guy named Aaron Comfer, who's still with Interworks today. And the challenge we had was, I should say, in the year 2000, that's when I decided this will be my real job, right? Even up to graduation, people are coming up to me going, hey, when are you going to get a real job? And I was interviewing with IBM and all these places, and I thought, I'm showing up in my full suit, which there's nothing wrong with full suits. It's not me. And I thought, I don't want to do this. Why am I looking? I really like what I'm doing. It's right here. So Interworks got serious in the year 2000, and then that's when things really just started to explode. So today we're a $80 million company. We have around 270 employees around the world. Most of them are here in the U.S. The most density is here in Stillwater. We've been on the Inc. 5000's list of fastest private growing companies for 13 different years. We've been in Fortune. And what happens is when you go through growth, people want to celebrate for you, right? Which is great. I mean, I love it. I'm not complaining. Chambers call, politicians call, you're growing, this is great, you're making jobs, you're a hero. And I'm like, I'm just fixing computer things, right? And the challenge was it kept going, it wouldn't stop. And everyone is celebrating growth, and we're going to the Inc. 5000 award banquet where it is all about growth. And I'm going, I don't care about growth. And so what would happen is we were just growing, things were happening. We're getting offers from people, I know you can't read the screen, but saying, we want to buy Interworks, we want to buy Interworks, we want to buy Interworks. And I'm going, people were coming to me going, so what's the plan? Are you going public? Are you going to sell? Are you going to retire early? Are you going to buy an island? Like what? And I'm like, and so for me, I would just say, look, I just want to have fun. And that was my answer. And everyone believed that and they respected that. But the problem was internally at Interworks, we had to say something more because people were going, I need something more. What's our mission? I'm going to accelerate this so we don't run out of time. So we ended up coming up with this saying at Interworks, do the best work for the best clients with the best people. And here's what that means. I think when those 3 things are as close to 100% true as possible, that's when I know I'm happiest. It's not about growth or EBITDA or 20% year over year or whatever. It's about, are we doing great work? Are we doing it for people we like? Are we doing it with great people? And so I'll give you an example of what I mean by best work. So even if you don't really know anything about tech or whatever, if you walked into two different server closets and your IT person showed you the thing on the left and the thing on the right, and you said, and I came to you and I said, you have to fire one of the people, which one would you fire? You know what the answer would be. So on the left, you have bad work. On the right, you have good work. When we built our building in Stillwater, I went to our guys and said, hey, you guys wire this. We're not going to pay electricians. And this is what they came back with. And to me, that's best work. It was just 5% more effort, maybe 5% more budget. And by the way, that picture on the left is in what looks like a coat closet. No one sees that the door shuts. It's a wooden door. And so for me, I go, I want people to bring that level of effort in everything they do. I don't care if it's putting data in a CRM, answering the phone, sending an email, fixing a computer, whatever. Best work, best clients, best people. We do a lot of work for the biggest brands on the planet: Google, Nike, Johnson & Johnson, the NHS, you name it. Sure, Google's cool. They are cool. Like, they're a fun company, nice people. But for me, a best client is someone like Cockrell Eye Care Center. So most of you probably know Dr. David. He has my cell phone. I have his cell phone. If he calls me on a Sunday night, I'm answering. If I call him, he's answering. If he needs a thing, we go, you need this thing. If the thing is $50K, if he's got the money, he'll say, do it. He may ask some questions, but one question he won't ask, and one thing that won't be in his head is, well, what's in it for you? Are you trying to upsell me, or are you trying to give me something I don't need? If he needs it, he has the money, he says yes, like, period. And we walk in the door, they're happy to see us. We give them some guidance, they're happy to hear it. Now, we had to earn that. We had to prove ourselves. But the point is, that's the kind of relationship we have. And for me, I go, if we can have that across every account we work in, then people are going to be much happier. Why wouldn't we do that? If we don't have someone that meets that criteria, and we've done our part to win them over, and they're still just not like that, they want to yell, they're just not cool, whatever, then let's fire them and move on. We are not trying to be the biggest company on the planet. So do the best work for the best clients with the best people. People's a little tricky because everyone here, if you're an employer, you will say, I need someone who works hard, and they need to be honest, they need to show up on time, they need to be a person of integrity. Like, every employer wants that. I think the two things that we want that are a little bit different are, we want people who are incredibly passionate about the thing they are here to do. It doesn't matter if it's accounting or setting up a server or coding or being in the marketing group. We want people who live it and breathe it. Like, that is their true passion. And I think the other thing that we want that's a little bit different is, we want, and this sounds cheesy, but I really mean it, we want people who are kind to others, who believe in the concept of team, right? We've had plenty of people who are very capable, but they're sort of in it just for themselves. And I go, that's okay. There's no problem with that. But that's not what we're about. Like, what we want is best work, best clients, best people. And so I think I'll just end this portion by saying, for me, it's important that if it's Monday at 8 a.m., when I wake up, like, I want to be excited about what I do. For me, is this fun? And so long as that answer is yes, I'll keep doing it. When the answer turns into no, I think that's when there needs to be some real reflection. So that is my canned talk. We have 4 minutes to spare. I can very quickly just give you, someone had asked me to talk about the soccer field, so I can very quickly talk about this. I think that I grew up, I'm a Stillwater person, so I was born in Edmond. I lived in Stillwater since I was 2. For me, the idea of, like, kids should have fun things to go do is important. I grew up, didn't have a lot of money, grew up in a family without a lot of money. I got to participate in things called NYSP. Coach Aiken was, I think, involved in NYSP. And it was a program for mostly for families that were low income, right? Or at least that's how I understood it. And so for me, like, I love that I had that opportunity. It was how I spent my summers. And so for me, I go, how do we get that in Stillwater? How do we partner with OSU? How do we get recreational facilities for kids to go do sporty things? I do not care about sports. I cannot name 3 OSU football players. I can tell you Michael Jordan is, but and I people call me the soccer guy, and I had to like learn more about soccer just because everyone calls me that. But for me, it's not about sports. It's about having a thing to do, learning how to be good at something. And so one of the things we're working on right now is how do we find different people? Like half the people in this room I've had conversations with, and they go, yeah, we should have that. No one goes, no, that's stupid. And I go, well, we have a lot of resourceful people. We have construction people. We have all kinds of different people that are happy to help. And what I'm trying to do is assemble them all into one place, find funding to combine with it, and go, how do we do this on the cheap, but also how do we do something that's high quality? So there's some great conversations happening with the city right now to go beyond soccer. Is there a world where we could bring in baseball and basketball and, new YMCA and all these other things? And how do we do this in a way that they all can stack on one another and we have sort of this economy of scale? And so we're trying to bring in this wellness corridor. So that's in the works right now. We'll see how far we get. I'm very optimistic. Several years ago, this was, we were just making this up and writing things down, and it's cool to see it sort of come to fruition. So yeah, there's a lot of people in this room that have contributed with time, money, effort, and I really appreciate that. I'll stop there.
We have time for maybe one question, if anyone wants to ask a question.
Is this on 12th Street?
This is, yeah. Great question. Yes.
Larry, you win the award. We've never had such a short question and such a short answer before. Any other short questions? We can do one more of those. Well, Behfar, sorry, missed it.
Yeah, I was going to talk about like hiring. How do you what would you say is your main source of like I guess getting applications?
Yeah. Well, we do partner quite a bit with OSU. I mean, I will straight up say we have a bias towards hiring local and trying to grow up from Stillwater. I mean, we've been very fortunate that there's some very specific technologies we focus on, and we've put a lot of content and material out there and have built a reputation around the world around some of these technologies. So in some cases, people come seeking us out from around the world. But I think for us, it's about community, and I mean like the community we're in, like the tech community, and then the entrepreneurial community, and just being out there in front of them. And then a lot of this is just about identifying talent. So specifically today, we try and partner with OSU a lot. We are working actively to partner with the different tech centers because they put out a lot of great students, and those students are going, where can I go in Oklahoma? And we're going, well, there's a lot of options. And so we have to we have a challenge making our brand aware, because most of the work we do is not in Stillwater, it's outside of Stillwater. So most people end up going, I had no idea you guys were even here. But yeah, it's just slow, persistent effort, raising awareness around our brand, who we are. And yeah, I don't know if that helps or not. But.
Well, Behfar, we